It started on a night that didn't belong to anyone. The sky above Nevada's quiet desert airfield was a heavy black curtain, rippled only by the red blink of a radio tower and the soft hum of fluorescent lights from the control room. Captain Daniel Reeves had been wrapping up his shift, his coffee gone cold, his logbook already closed. There were no more flights scheduled till morning, just the long, familiar silence of the night shift. That's when he saw her. A figure in white stepped out from the shadows beyond the hangar. At first, Daniel thought it was a maintenance tech, someone late to finish a job, but as she moved closer, her steps didn't match the brisk rhythm of a worker. She walked like someone out of place, slow, deliberate, her dress fluttering against the breeze that wasn't there. The runway lights shimmered against the fabric as if she were half transparent. He leaned forward, squinting through the tower glass. Tower to ground. Anyone see movement on runway 3? Static answered. The other controllers had clocked out. It was just him tonight. He glanced back at the radar screen. Nothing but quiet green. No scheduled departures, no arrivals. Nothing in the system at all. Daniel pressed the mic again. Control to maintenance. Do we have anyone doing checks out there? No reply. She kept walking. Barefoot, he realized. Her feet glowed faintly against the edge lights like she was walking through memory. Daniel's chest tightened. He zoomed the binoculars on her face. Young, maybe mid-20s, hair loose and dark, eyes fixed straight ahead toward the far end of the runway. She wasn't carrying anything. No badge, no visible purpose. Just walking like she knew where she was going. He called again, this time to the regional dispatcher. Tower Bravo Delta, control check. Do you copy? A pause, then. Go ahead, Bravo Delta. You got any flight plans inbound or outbound from our strip tonight? Negative, the dispatcher replied. You're dark till sunrise. Why? Daniel hesitated. Then who the hell just stepped onto my runway? A faint crackle filled the line, then silence. He looked again. The woman had stopped halfway down the stretch, turning her head slightly as if she'd heard him. Even from hundreds of feet away, he swore she was looking right at the tower window, and she smiled. A small, sad smile that sent a cold shiver crawling up his arms. Daniel grabbed his flashlight and keys. He wasn't supposed to leave the tower during active hours. But this didn't feel like something you logged in a report. He took the stairs 2 at a time and burst out into the desert night. The air smelled of jet fuel and dust. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, bouncing off the concrete as he jogged toward the woman. When he reached the edge of the runway, she was gone. He spun in a full circle, breathing hard, the beam sweeping over empty air. No footprints, no sound. Just the hum of the sodium lamps and the rustle of wind. Jesus, he muttered. Am I losing it? He walked the entire length of the strip. Nothing. Then, just as he turned back toward the tower, he heard it. A faint engine whine in the distance. It was low, steady, unmistakable. A plane. Daniel froze. His heart slammed in his chest. No, he whispered. There's no scheduled. The sound grew louder. Headlights appeared in the far distance, slicing through the night. It was an old twin-prop Cessna, descending fast, its landing lights trembling as it lined up with the empty runway. Control to inbound aircraft, Daniel shouted into his radio, running toward his truck. Identify yourself. You are not cleared to land. Static. Then the roar of engines as the plane touched down, wheels screaming against the asphalt. Sparks shot out, and for a heartbeat Daniel thought the thing might explode, but it didn't. It slowed, rolled to a stop at the far end, completely dark. The engines died. Daniel climbed into his truck, headlights flashing over the silent aircraft as he pulled up beside it. The fuselage was faded, silver with rust streaks. The tail number was partly scratched off, but what was left looked old. Older than any plane still flying. He jumped out, flashlight ready. "This is restricted ground," he shouted. "Identify yourself." No movement. The cockpit was empty. The cabin door creaked open slightly in the wind, swinging, like someone had just stepped out. Daniel's throat went dry. "Hello?" He shined the light inside. 2 seats, empty. A map fluttered against the dashboard. A faded flight plan with water stains. The date at the top read July 20. His breath caught. That can't be right. He looked around again, the hairs on his neck lifting. The woman, the one in white, was standing behind the plane now, half in shadow, watching him. "Who are you?" he shouted, his voice cracking. She didn't answer, just took one slow step forward. "They didn't believe me either," she said softly, her voice almost drowned by the wind. "But you came." Daniel's pulse spiked. "What do you mean? Came where?" Her gaze lifted toward the tower. "Home." Then, before he could move, the runway lights flickered. Every bulb along the stretch began to blink in a wave, one after another, forming a path of bright white light stretching into the horizon. Daniel turned back toward her, but she was gone again. He sprinted to where she'd stood, scanning the darkness, the flashlight beam shaking. The sand was undisturbed. No tracks, no sound. Then his radio crackled. "Control Tower Bravo Delta. This is Air Command. You reported unauthorized runway activity." Daniel steadied his voice. "Affirmative. Unknown female. Possible aircraft. Landing without clearance. I have an old Cessna on the ground. Tail numbers. Partially missing." "Repeat that." He squinted at the metal again. "It looks like November 05, Sierra Delta." A pause. Then the voice on the other end turned sharp. "Say again, Bravo Delta. Did you say November 05, Sierra Delta?" "Affirmative." "Negative." "Negative," the voice said quickly. "That's impossible. That aircraft went down 38 years ago. Pilot deceased. No survivor." Daniel's hand trembled as he lowered the mic. He stared at the plane, its dull silver skin gleaming faintly under the tower lights. The wind whispered across the empty field, carrying a faint smell of burnt fuel and salt, like ocean air, hundreds of miles from the coast. He climbed into the cockpit again, his flashlight tracing across the old dials. The instruments were dead. The radio panel burned out, but the co-pilot's seat held something, a photograph tucked between the cushions. He pulled it free. It was a picture of the same woman, smiling, sitting in front of a hangar with a flight jacket on her lap. On the back, in faded ink, "To Danny, see you when I land." His heart nearly stopped. No one called him Danny except he turned the photo over again, looking closer. The date matched the one on the flight plan, 1987. But he wasn't even born then. He stumbled back out of the plane, shaking his head, eyes wide. "No," he whispered. "This can't be real." The radio burst alive again. "Bravo Delta, be advised, we're dispatching ground units. Do not approach the aircraft further." But Daniel barely heard it. He was staring down the runway where the lights were still pulsing faintly, drawing his eyes toward the horizon, toward something waiting in the dark. He could almost hear it now, faintly beneath the wind, a woman's voice calling his name, soft and distant, like a memory that wasn't his. Danny. He turned slowly, and this time she was standing right beside him. Daniel froze. His flashlight fell from his hand, clattering against the tarmac and rolling to a stop. The woman's face was inches from his now, pale, under the floodlights, her eyes glowing like moonlight caught in water. Up close, she didn't look ghostly. She looked heartbreakingly human. There was fear in her eyes, and something else. Recognition. How do you know my name? He whispered. She tilted her head slightly. You shouldn't be here, Danny, she said softly. Not yet. He took a small step back. What do you mean, not yet? Who are you? Her gaze flicked toward the old Cessna behind him. I was supposed to land here. July 12, 1987. The storm took us down 20 miles east. They never found me. Daniel stared at her, his pulse thudding in his ears. That plane, you were the pilot? She nodded slowly. Flight 905, Las Vegas to Reno. Routine hop, but control tower lost contact. They said it was pilot error. They were wrong. But this airfield wasn't here back then, Daniel said, shaking his head. It didn't exist. Her expression didn't change. I know. The air felt suddenly heavy, like the whole desert had stopped breathing. Daniel tried to focus, to reason, but nothing made sense. Why me? He said finally. Why now? She looked down, her fingers brushing the hem of her white dress. Because you listened. A flicker of memory surfaced. His late father's voice, years ago, telling him bedtime stories about a woman who vanished mid-flight. His dad had been an air traffic controller, too, before he died in a small plane crash when Daniel was 7. Wait, Daniel said slowly, his stomach tightening. My father. He worked for Air Command back in the 80s. He used to tell me he said he lost a flight once, couldn't make contact. Was that you? Her eyes glistened. Your father tried to bring me in. He was the last voice I heard before the storm hit. He told me to hold steady, Danny. She smiled faintly as if at the irony. That was his nickname on the radio. Danny. Daniel's heart stopped. The pieces fell together like glass shards clicking into place. The message on the back of the photograph, to Danny, see you when I land, wasn't for him. It was for his father. I don't understand, he whispered. You were meant to finish what he couldn't, she said gently. To guide me in. The lights along the runway began to pulse again, faster now, as if the earth itself was breathing through the circuit lines. The wind howled across the tarmac, rattling the old plane's wings. Daniel looked toward the horizon, where a faint shimmer glowed. A mirage, or maybe something more. Guide you in, he repeated. She turned toward the ghostly glow. One last landing. He hesitated. If I do this, what happens? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Then I go home. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. He jogged back to the tower, climbed the stairs 2 at a time, and threw on his headset. The radios came alive, crackling faintly like old vinyl static. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing in, like someone else's destiny stitched into his own. He pressed the mic. This is Tower Bravo Delta calling November 05 Sierra Delta, he said, his voice trembling. You're cleared for final approach. For a moment, only silence. Then, a faint voice, grainy, distant, almost disbelieving. Tower. Bravo Delta? Say again? Daniel's eyes widened. The voice was her, but not the woman standing on the runway. Younger, nervous, alive. Cessna, November 05 Sierra Delta, Daniel said, his voice steadying. You are clear to land. Runway 3 is lit and ready. Wind calm. Bring her home. There was a pause, then a shaky laugh through static. Copy that, Tower. God, I thought I lost you. Tell Danny, thank you. Daniel's throat tightened. He looked out the tower window. The woman in white stood at the edge of the runway, watching the empty horizon, tears glinting in her eyes. The sky flickered just for a second, and a glowing outline of the same Cessna appeared, descending in silence through the darkness. Its lights shimmered, bending the air like heat waves. As it touched the runway, the ground vibrated lightly. The phantom plane rolled to a stop exactly where the wreck had been. Daniel exhaled shakily. The woman turned to him one last time, smiling. Not sad this time, but grateful. "Tell him I landed safe," she said. And then she stepped forward, fading into the light that now poured from the phantom Cessna's cockpit. The glow rose higher, whirling into the air like embers, until it vanished completely. The runway lights dimmed to normal. The wind fell silent. The old plane was gone. Not even tire marks remained. Daniel sat there in the tower, frozen, the radio still in his hand. Then a soft chime echoed from the console, a new signal, a transmission record that hadn't been there before. The log file blinked with a timestamp that didn't make sense. July 12, 1987 left. The final entry read, Tower Bravo Delta, cleared for landing. Runway 3. He printed it out, staring at the paper like it might disappear. By morning, the Air Command investigators arrived. They combed the runway, the hangar, the logs, but when Daniel showed them the printout, the timestamp had changed, now showing the current date and time, with his own voice identified. No trace of the old call remained. The officer shook his head. "Mr. Reeves, there's no record of that aircraft anywhere in our archives. The tail number you gave, nothing. Are you sure you didn't misread it?" Daniel just stared at the empty runway, sunlight breaking across the desert. "I'm sure," he said quietly. "I saw her land." That day he drove home in silence. The photo he'd taken from the plane sat on the passenger seat beside him. But now, when he looked at the back, the ink had changed. The message read, "To Danny, thank you for bringing me home." Years passed, and Daniel never spoke publicly about what happened. People called it fatigue, stress, desert hallucination. But every year on July 12th, he drove back to that same airfield just before midnight. And without fail, the runway lights flickered, just once, like a whisper of thanks across time. One night, as he stood by the fence, watching the empty stretch of asphalt, his daughter asked, "Dad, why do you keep coming here?" He smiled faintly. "Because sometimes," he said, "what's lost isn't gone. It's just waiting for someone to listen." She frowned, not understanding. "You mean ghosts?" He laughed softly. "No, sweetheart, not ghosts, just people who never got to say goodbye." As they turned to leave, she looked back at the runway. For just a second, she swore she saw a figure in white waving beside a faint glimmer of silver wings. But when she blinked, it was gone, and somewhere far off in the desert wind, the sound of an old Cessna engine whispered across the night sky. Gentle, steady, homebound at last. Sometimes the past doesn't ask for proof. It asks for peace. And sometimes peace is just a voice saying, "You're cleared to land."